Hi, everyone. You're listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City. I'm the founder and editor of Cherry Bombe magazine. For today's episode, we have a great chat between two Cherry Bombe superstars. Oh, and cover girls, right. They were both on our cover, Molly Boz and Sophia Roe. Sophia interviewed Molly at the Cherry Bombe Jubilee conference in April of last year. They covered a lot of ground, from cookbooks to kitchens to creativity. We'll share their conversation with you in just a minute. Introducing them are culinary creative Woldy Reyes of Woldy Kusina and cookbook author Ixta Belfrage, who joined us all the way from London. For those of you new to Jubilee, it's Cherry Bombe's annual conference, and hundreds of women and culinary creatives join us from around the world. It's a great day of food, drink, community, and conversation. This year's is taking place Saturday, April 20th in Manhattan, and tickets are on sale right now at cherrybombe.com. I would love to see you at Jubilee. Make sure you stay tuned till the end of today's show because we have a sweet little Jubilee surprise from pastry chef Paola Velez right after Molly and Sophia. What else? How would you like to be a Cherry Bombe investor? After a decade of bootstrapping, we finally decided to raise money, and we're doing it via a community round on a platform called WeFunder. These are the final few days of our community round. It ends this Wednesday, January 31st, so head to wefunder.com/cherrybombe to learn more. The link is in our show notes. We've raised over $650,000 for more than 200 investors, most of whom are women and most of whom are first-time investors. It means a lot to have our community fueling the next phase of Cherry Bombe. We have a lot planned for Cherry Bombe 2.0, as you can imagine. Thank you to everyone who has participated in our WeFunder campaign so far. You truly are the bomb. And please note, if you are considering this, it is a real investment, not a Kickstarter. Read the WeFunder investor FAQs before you take any action. And if you have questions about the round for me or our CEO, you can email us at info@cherrybombe.com. Now, let's check in with Molly and Sophia from Jubilee.
Hello, Bomb Squad. Wow, look at all of you.
Look at us.
Girl, I know. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Woldy Reyes. Some of you might know me on Instagram as Woldy Kusina, spelled Kusina. I'm a queer chef, and I love sharing my modern approach to Filipino food. And I'm only the second dude to have ever been on the Jubilee stage. Thank you so much. My first cookbook is coming out in spring 2025. I hope you all come to my Jubilee cookbook signing 2 years from now. And fun fact, I met my literary agent here last year.
Love that for you, Woldy. My name is Ixta Belfrage. I'm so happy to be here at my very first Jubilee, all the way from London. I'm also the author of Mezcla, a book about fusion cooking inspired by my Brazilian heritage and my Italian and Mexican upbringing. I hope you'll all come to my book signing, which is today at 4:45. And Woldy, I promise I'll come back for yours if you come to mine.
Girl, it's a deal. We're so honored to introduce our next guest. Molly Boz is a cook, recipe developer, and the best-selling author of Cook This Book and of the upcoming More is More, which no doubt will be another bestseller. Molly has her own membership club called The Club, which we all want to be a part of. She also has her own wine line called Drink This Wine. And she's the proud mom of a wiener dog. Unfortunately, Tuna, the wiener, is back home in LA. He'll be here next year.
Joining Molly is Sophia Roe, the James Beard Award-winning chef, writer, and founder of the Apartment Miso Culinary Studio, and the host and producer of the show Counterspace. Sophia was nominated for a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Culinary Host for the show, making her the first Black woman to be nominated in that category. Congratulations, Sophia.
Everybody, holler for Molly Boz and Sophia Roe.
Thank you. Sick. Oh my goodness. Hi. Oh, this is
Can you
so...
guys hear?
Wow, these lights are so bright.
Wait,
Sheesh.
are we doing our picture? We said we were going to do a picture.
So we're gonna do it quickly. Okay, so this is Molly's first Jubilee, you guys. Okay, so it's her very first time. So all these people come up here and no one ever takes a picture of you guys. So we just thought it'd be really cool to do like a little selfie picture moment. So like, let's.
If we may.
Can we do this? Can we get in there?
Everybody hands up.
Okay. Let's do like a video. So this is a really fun, exciting thing for me because I'm such a Molly fan, but this is my first time meeting Molly in person, which is wild.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that wild to even think about?
It's crazy. We've known each other on the internet for a
Yes.
long time, and it's the first IRL, so if we seem a little obsessed with our own conversation, apologies.
Super obsessed. Actually, Kerry kept texting me, are you good with questions? I'm like, I don't need any questions. I have
Yeah, she walked in here, she's like, I have no notes, I know what I'm gonna talk
nothing.
about.
Yeah, so if you're expecting something formal, like I said, it's definitely not gonna be that. So before there was a second book, because that book, Baby, is coming out in October, right? Before you were a New York Times bestseller, before you were a Bon App, okay, before you were a restaurant cook, why food? Did food choose you? Did you choose food?
I think that I chose food, but because I like happened upon a few circumstances in my life that like really put food at the center of my life. I didn't grow up in a family that was like super food obsessed. We like ate well, but it wasn't, you know, the focus of like our family dinners wasn't like, what are the recipes and the way that I'm obsessed with it now.
Where'd you grow up?
Upstate New York. And my parents are here. And you guys are lovely cooks, but it was just not all about food, and we can all admit that.
Just being honest.
And the frozen peas kind of sucked, I'm not gonna lie.
Yummy.
Regardless, I studied abroad in Italy studying art history and chose to live in a homestay instead of like in dorms while I was abroad. And I lived with this woman named Graziella. This was, I don't know what year, but I was like, it was my second year of college. And she was a widow and her kids had grown up and left the house, and she spent all day long cooking. Like that was just like what she did, and that was her life. And she would go to the market in the morning every single day, even though like she could easily just go twice a week and stock up, but no, she was like part of her ritual. And then she would come home and she would cook for me really rustic, simple, but like very cared for meals. And I would come home from school and sit across from her, and she would feed me, and I'd be like, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. She didn't speak any English. It was a little awkward at first, but we sat in silence and I ate.
The food language, right? It doesn't matter if everybody speaks a different language.
Yeah.
If you all are together and you eat a tomato, like we all got it.
That translates.
Yes.
And so that was kind of when I realized, like, I want to pursue, I love to eat. I love learning how to cook. I like love watching her cook. I love the ritual of like her going to the market and figuring out what she's making, like all of that. And I want to figure out how to do that in my life professionally. And so that's kind of the moment where I was like, ooh, art history, smell ya. I did finish my degree.
I mean, the art history thing tracks. I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Because I do believe there's so much aesthetic in what you do.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about, okay, so you come back from Italy, then what?
Yeah.
What do you tell your parents?
So, I don't know, guys. What did I tell you? I think I was like, I want to work in restaurants. And so like I was home for the summer and started working in an Italian restaurant. I was very obsessed with Italian food at the time.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I like spent a few years just only eating and cooking Italian food. And now I like feel pretty far away from that phase, but
Okay.
it comes in waves. And so I decided, like I had a choice at that point. I obviously was gonna finish my degree, but was like, do I go to culinary school? We've talked about this. My decision was no. I ran the numbers basically and was like, I'm gonna pay for an education or I'm gonna get paid a little bit, work in restaurants and get the education.
I mean, you'd already had the degree too. Like I'm a two-time
Yeah.
college dropout, so you made the right decision.
Let's go.
I dropped out of culinary school because I ended up getting a job in a restaurant, which is the whole point of going.
Yep,
So,
right, because you had to pay for it.
Exactly.
And so I decided that the best way to really learn how to cook beyond just having watched Graziella and being like playing in my home kitchen was to go and work in restaurants and like really get the chops. And so after I graduated college, I went, I think literally the day after I graduated college, got my degree, walked off stage, next day walked into a kitchen and got a job and was like full-time line cook.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I worked in restaurants for 4 years or so before like burning out. And I was like, let me just kind of work my way around the scene and moved to New York City, worked in some restaurants here until I felt like I was really equipped, really knew how to cook. And then I was like, what's next? Because I don't want to be a restaurant chef.
So at restaurant chef stage, restaurant chef Molly, how did you feel about writing a recipe?
I didn't even know like what a recipe was at restaurant chef stage Molly. I maybe followed some like very vague formulas in binders inside in the backs of restaurants in order to like execute my prep. But like the idea of writing a recipe that was functional for a novice cook or a home cook was completely over my head, or like off the radar, really. And one of the things that was really hard, like fast forward a little bit to transitioning out of working in restaurants and into recipe development and working in a food magazine, is like having to totally change my brain, turn off restaurant chef Molly and turn on home cook Molly. And it was a year or so before I got really comfortable with that new version of myself, because I had all this pride about having learned how to cook in restaurants. And walking into Bon Appetit and being asked to develop a recipe, everything was overwrought and overthought. And I was like, there was a million elements to everything I wanted to do, because that's how you cook in a restaurant.
I mean, that's me. It's so bad.
You're still doing it.
That's why everybody's like, where's your cookbook? I'm like, yeah.
Years.
Because I want there to be a million things, and a custard and a sauce and a dee-dee-dee. It's painful.
And that's a delicious way to eat. And
Yeah.
we're so lucky to be able to eat that way when we go out to
Right.
restaurants where you have the luxury of all of this time to prep. But let's be real, like home cooks aren't spending all day prepping. Like
True.
they're not making a sauce and a thing and a this and a that and like
Right.
an overnight braise. And
Yeah.
and I had to really change the way I thought about food and like figure out what my identity was as a cook without all of that sort of baggage.
Right. At Bon App, were you already thinking like, I want to have a cookbook one day?
Yeah, definitely. Once I pivoted out of restaurants and into food media, like I always loved food magazines. It was always a dream. I never thought that it would happen as soon as it did. Like when I got a call from the publisher about taking a meeting, I was like, whoa, wait, like this is 4 years too early on my schedule. What's happening here?
Okay.
But like, yeah, I'll take the meeting. And so writing a book just was expedited on my timeline.
That is just wild to hear
You're
about.
gonna do it
like
too.
I know.
Girl.
We have the same book agent, and
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
we love our bookie.
We love. So talk to me about the process of writing a book, because I mean I know it, but
Yeah.
I think every single cookbook author goes through it kind of differently.
Yeah.
How long ago did you start?
All right, so
The first book.
The first one, if it came out in 2021, I probably started it in end of 2018, early 2019. So I guess 4 years and some ago. The idea for the first book, it's not like it was an idea that was in me my whole life. And I was like, I'll be ready when I'm ready. Like I had no idea what my book would be. And it wasn't until I started talking to a publisher and having a conversation that I started to really think about, well, if I'm gonna put a book out in the world, what's it going to be? And actually Nicole, who's our book agent, was so helpful in helping me form my ideas into something that was self-contained and marketable as a book and not just like totally all over the place. So, you know, I figured out that the first book I wanted to be like really about technique. I think that was like restaurant Molly speaking again. Like good technique is still at the core of great home cooking, even if it's simplified versions of techniques that I learned in restaurants. And I feel strongly about really teaching those things to novice cooks in order to equip them well to then later on be able to like maybe improvise a little and kind of like open up the fridge and choose your own adventure. But it feels to me like it's too overwhelming to do so if you don't know, like, here's how you sear a piece of meat. Here's how you scramble an egg and whatever. And this is what a vinaigrette is like. Here's the ratio. So the first book, I thought about, like, what are all the things that I take for granted as someone who really knows how to cook? And then how can I put those in front of a young cook in a way that doesn't feel intimidating or, like, pretentious?
Even with the way that it's organized, the grocery list being, this is what this is and this is where you can find it. I don't think about that at all.
Why don't people do that though?
It's true.
I'm still,
You're right.
I'm still
You're right.
confused about why. And I feel, what she's referring to is just like how in many recipes, you'll see an ingredient list listed just like in order, the ingredients will be listed in the order they appear in the recipe. But I decided to organize it by
It's like a pantry. She has
a
like
category.
The category, exactly.
That you would find it in your kitchen. There's a category in my recipe that will say dairy, and if there's cheese and butter and eggs or whatever in a recipe, they will all be in the dairy category. So that, like you only have to go to your fridge and open up your like dairy department once. And when you're shopping in the supermarket, you're not like circling around the supermarket because you're just like, you're in the dairy department. What do we need here? Let's move on to the dry goods. Anyway,
Do you think that's part of your Bon App era?
Yeah, I think that's just part of my like, everything is a calculation of how do I remove the barrier to entry for a home cook and like what work can I do up front to take it out of the hands of the cook so that they can just cook and like try and understand what the hell is going on in the kitchen. And I'm not like throwing them, you know, for a loop around the grocery store and around their kitchen. And it's all just about like me taking on the stress and like taking off their plate.
You taking off the stress. I mean, I don't know. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to stress. I think for now, I want to talk about aesthetic because I've never seen a cookbook that looks like yours. And I've seen both of them. I got the advanced early copy of the second one, just in case you guys were wondering. And it's so good. It's so good. So aesthetic. When I think about you, it's funny, even before I think about your book, now I just think about your home. This is the most incredible home in Los Angeles. If you guys don't know, please go on and
Shout out to
your home. Oh my God, the most incredible home. So I want to talk about this art history degree now because it wasn't for naught.
Yeah,
you really do utilize it in your work every day.
I think the reason that I even found art history compelling when I was in college is because I grew up in a pretty creative family. My dad was a photographer. My brother was like quite an artist when he was younger, less so now because he's into birds now. But
he's into what now?
Birds, like large birds.
Like a living, like a live
prey,
birds?
I guess. They're called falcons. He's a falconer. You would love him.
Wow, I already do.
At Talk on Hand is his.
We're gonna talk later.
Yeah, you'll love him. Anyway, I came from a pretty visually minded household, I feel like, and then also like the school that I went to growing up in grade school was very creative. It was pretty loosey-goosey. Wednesdays were just like, create. And so like, if you wanted to do art all day, you did art all day, or photography. And so it was just, I guess, a part of my life up until the point that I did a degree in art history. And so I think just like a mindfulness for aesthetics has followed me. But then I also met a man named Ben Willett, and he's over there. I married him. And he has an incredible eye and is a designer, and not necessarily a graphic designer, but like just his whole world is visual, and he has imparted so much of that on me. And so like the way that he sees the world is now a way that I see the world, where like it matters the way things look. And it doesn't have to matter, but if it does matter, like everything feels better.
It really matters to me also.
I know.
So I fully understand that. I think the way you explained like why you wanted your book to look the way that it looks, like very graphic, sort of, what was it, building blocks inspired?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
The colors, if you guys have seen the book, or my first book is called Cook This Book, and it's cobalt blue entirely. And the second book is and will be entirely red. And the colors basically inside the book, and that have become consequently representative, I think, of just my brand in general and everything that I do, were chosen because they're primary colors. It's red, blue, and yellow. And those to me are like the first colors that you learn in school when you're learning about color theory, and it's the primary colors. And when you're in kindergarten, you're learning with blocks, and they're like shapes, and they're graphic, and they're red, yellow, and blue. And so I thought what my whole MO here is to take people kind of like back to basics and build them from like the foundation up. Then what better colors to represent that? We'll just figure out how to make them cool.
So talk to me about design, because your book, it doesn't look like any other cookbook.
Right.
First off, you're on the cover of it, which I think is so cool. So was that by design? Did you choose that to have yourself on the cover?
No, I did not think I would be on the cover of the first book. I don't think the publisher thought or wanted me to, because like I was newer in this field at that point, I think less recognizable by face. And so like the best way to sell a cookbook is to just put like a really delicious picture of food on the cover.
Molly, that's the standard. And I think for most people do it.
That's the standard.
The standard is like a beautiful piece.
Unless you're like Ina Garden, then you're like, it's true, I'll buy Ina's book.
Because she's Ina.
Right. And so I was trying to figure out what recipe in the first book would become the cover shot, and I had no idea. I thought like maybe it would be the Caesar salad because that's kind of become my signature dish, but also like, not everyone loves salad. Is that really gonna sell a book? Like they probably want a plate of pasta. And then we were on set at the studio where we shot the book with my photographers, Peden and Monk, and they were just like snapping behind the scenes, whatever, all of these shots. And they took one shot when I was like not prepared. I didn't have like my hair and makeup and whatever. It was not the cover shoot. And like we pulled it up and we were like, this is like kind of the vibe of the book. Like this is the energy of Molly caught off guard and like in the middle of eating and just a little bit irreverent.
Isn't that such a cool story? I think it's so cool.
And so we like pitched it to the publisher and they were like, actually, yeah, we'd kind of fuck with this, so.
It's so cool. Oh, so here's something else really cool is that you didn't go with traditional cookbook designers.
Yes.
Right? So
That was
these
a good-
people had never, so whoever made your book had never made a cookbook before.
Yes, so that was another conscious decision that we made. I mean, oftentimes a cookbook will be designed in-house by the in-house design team at the publisher because I come with a kind of predetermined aesthetic and my partner cares a lot about graphic design. We knew we wanted to bring someone else on to like bring some new light into the process of designing a book. And we were very particular about picking graphic designers who had never designed cookbooks before, because there is something about approaching it with a totally blank slate and without the preconceived ideas about this is what a head note or like, you know, intro to a recipe looks like, and here's where it lives on the page, and like this is what steps look like in a recipe and a title. And it's like for someone who just is thinking visually but doesn't have all of these preconceived notions about the flow of a recipe to come in and put their own sort of like brain on it felt really exciting to me. I think as a result, like the design of the book doesn't feel cookbooky necessarily,
It's true.
but it's still like functional.
Absolutely.
And we did the same for More is More. It's a different design team, but similarly, like no experience in cookbooks, just like badass designers.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's like so community and family and friends. And I kind of love how you talk about that, how you could sort of just like, I am who I am because of all these really cool, talented people around me.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's cool to be up here, but also I fully recognize that the book wouldn't look anything like it did if not for so many people who were a part of it. And same for literally everything I do. Like my wine wouldn't look how it is, and it wouldn't taste how it is, and it wouldn't get distributed to where it does. Like there are so many people who support everything that I do and make it possible. And then like I get all the credit for it, which feels unfair. So this is a shout out to everyone who's helped me at any point on anything.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Shout out, fam.
Yeah.
Me too, man. Sometimes I still don't know why I'm up here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your home, because this kitchen, I think about your kitchen all the time, actually. I was unaware that the kitchen was inspired by the color of butter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about this on the phone the other day.
I didn't know that.
The house was designed that we moved into, or I guess in the middle of the pandemic, out in LA. We were living in New York, we moved to LA. My husband decided to take it on as his first residential project and design the whole thing. Obviously, like the kitchen was going to be a big part of that, and I had thoughts about what I wanted in my kitchen, what I needed in my kitchen, but kind of throughout the whole process of designing the house, I sort of realized that like the way that we were communicating with one another about design choices and color palettes and materials and whatever, like my inclination was always to relate it back to food. And so like instead of being like, I really think it would be great to have like a light, creamy yellow colored kitchen, I was like, let's do it the color of butter or whatever, something like that. So like our conversations kind of, at least for me, like that's my language. So the kitchen being butter colored is one, and then we designed this bathroom off of our bedroom that's inspired by Caesar salads.
Guys, you have to go on Instagram and look at this bathroom. It
literally looks
like a Caesar salad. It's just, it's
like
so
when
epic.
you see it, you can't unsee it. But if you walked in there, you wouldn't be like, whoa, it's the Caesar salad bath. It's not like illustrations of Caesar salad.
No.
But it's the palette and it's the vibe. And so, yeah, we got kind of playful with the design of our house. I obviously deferred to him on most decisions, but like I think that whenever there was a moment for a conversation about color or whatever, it became a conversation about food, and then Ben just like made it all look perfect.
Okay, second book.
Yeah.
I really want to keep talking. I'm so sorry. Second book. So did you know when you came up with the first book that you're going to do the second book?
Yeah, I like, after going through the experience of writing the first book, which was a lot and is so much work, like unbelievable
Talk about the
amounts of
timeline.
work.
How long does it actually take?
From when you start talking to a publisher to when it's out in the world, 2.5 to 3 years.
Definitely.
That's a really long time, especially like in food media where food is happening on the internet so rapidly, and like trends are happening and recipes come out like this, and then they go out of style like this. And so to develop recipes that you know aren't going to see the light of day for 2 years is very overwhelming. And you really have to think about like, let's make recipes that are timeless so that they're not just like so last year when they come out. in any case, I so enjoyed the process of writing a book. I think that my life goes so fast in so many ways, and many of ours do. So much of it happens on social media, and so many of the other things I do like are quick turnaround projects. And I was given the opportunity with my first book to work on it for 2 years. And it's a very special thing in a time like this, I think.
Yeah.
And it forced me to slow down. And so I loved the process of it. And as soon as the first book came out, I was like, I want to do this again. And as I was telling you the other day, if everything else got taken out from under me, and like I was banned from YouTube and my wine company like went down the tubes, and
Not gonna happen, but okay.
and like Instagram shut down, and I did nothing else, but someone was like, but you can keep writing cookbooks and like
You'd be
people will
happy.
still buy them. I'd be like, great, we're good here.
So you're gonna do a third.
Oh yeah, I know what it's gonna be, but I can't talk about it.
Okay. Let's talk about your wine. It's my dream to have a wine. So I just
Yeah.
think how this came about for you is like the coolest story. Please, please share.
So the wine was like a pretty
Drink this
organic.
wine. Drink
Yeah,
this
it's
wine,
called
by
Drink
the
This Wine. And I created this company in partnership with Andy Young, who is a really, really incredible artist of a winemaker out of Portland. And he has a wine label called The Marigny. And we became friends like years ago when I was working at Bon Appetit, and he was always like pouring wine in the test kitchen. There was just like this jolly dude who like always was at our parties pouring wine. And I was like, who is this guy? We became friends. And then during the pandemic, he had like a couple extra cases of rosé that he like hadn't labeled and were bottled. And he was like, what do I do with these? It's like a random small allotment. And he called me up and was like, would you want to like do a collab and just slap both our names on it? And maybe we'll do like a really limited run, fun little thing. And I was like, yeah, I do want to do that. But also like, should we just like start a wine company together and just screw the collab? Like, let's just go big. And he was like, also that. And
Like what? That's so cool.
yeah, and
Love
so
it.
we just decided to like, instead of do this tiny release, like work towards a bigger like actual company that will have legs beyond the drop. And
That's why you got to work with your friends.
yeah, and so the wine company is basically like all of the wines, this is the most incredible part of it for me,
it is.
are designed to be consumed with my food. And so Andy, the winemaker, like before we started anything and like decided on grapes or whatever direction we were gonna go with our first drop, was like, I'm gonna cook through your book, through Cook This Book. I'm gonna understand your palate and like what ingredients you lean towards and what kind of flavors are like really represent Molly. And then I'm going to create a wine that I feel like complements that.
Isn't that freaking the coolest thing?
It was
I just think that
amazing.
is the coolest thing.
And I
Wow.
tasted it and I was like, nailed it.
I love it.
And so, yeah, I feel so lucky to, again, what I was just mentioning earlier, that like, I wouldn't have a wine company if it weren't for like this incredible artist who can just like taste my food and be like, here's your wine, Molly. Like, it's just, I feel blessed.
Just the coolest thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, but there's this really cool story about this recipe that didn't make it in your book that I have to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like, I deal with these like, you know, when you test something and it just doesn't work and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think that one thing that I want to talk about more in my work and just don't is like all of the fails and the flops along the way. You know, we show this beautiful finished dish on Instagram and no one realizes that like I tested 4 other versions and was like, that kind of sucked, you know?
Yeah.
I was telling Sophia the other day about a recipe in More is More, the forthcoming book, that I think I tested 16 times, some ridiculous amount of time where it's like, just give up at this point. And it was like, I had this vision. It was going to be a coconut custard filled cornbread. The cornbread, you were gonna slice into it and like this amazing coconut custard was gonna spill out.
Sounds amazing.
I failed, and I failed, and I flopped, and I failed, and again, and I kept doing it. And eventually I said, it's just not meant to be. And so I sort of like rethought things and was like, all right, well, if the custard's not going on the inside, then it's happening on the outside. And like, what can I do to
not a waste.
turn that idea into something that I've spent all of this time on? And so I took the custard and turned it into like a spreadable coconut jam instead. Regardless, like the point of the story is more just that I think we were talking about like perseverance and like failures, pushing through failures and allowing them to get you to a place that you otherwise wouldn't, instead of just like throwing your hands up and being like, I hate this recipe.
It's really important when you're doing a cookbook, right? Because there's so many recipes and so many things you need to test. Molly, thank you so much. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Thank you to Molly and Sophia. Last year's Jubilee was such a beautiful day. It was nice to relive a little piece of it. Now, here's an amuse bouche of sorts from Jubilee 2022. It's Paola Velez, award-winning pastry chef and co-founder of Bakers Against Racism, the world's largest charity bake sale.
Hi, everyone. So Kerry reached out to me to say something. At first, it was, say whatever you like. And I said, what does that mean? And then as Kerry and I do, we exchanged back and forth. And I said, Kerry, I can't do this. I'm too nervous. I'm too scared. I'm too this, that. I asked her, what do you actually want me to do? Just tell me, and I'll do it. Anything. So she said, can you read a poem and then share a few thoughts? And I said, oh, I could do that. I could share a poem that I don't have to write, you know? So this is Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver. Thank you, Kerry, for sharing this beautiful poem with me. The first time I read this poem, I sat in my thoughts and asked, what is my plan for my one wild and precious life? Anxiety washed over me. I am no stranger to anxiety, as many of you in this room are as well. But as I reread what Mary Oliver kept saying, I let my mind wander through the field of flowers, where I let my fingertips gently touch each wildflower, appreciating their beautiful yet fragile fragrance. I daydreamed that my imaginary self could finally stop and smell my flowers. And if you're like me, I hope that you stop to smell yours too. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. That was so beautiful. Hearing you read Mary Oliver's poem brought tears to my eyes. That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join us at this year's Jubilee, head to cherrybombe.com for tickets. And if you want to call yourself a Cherry Bombe investor or add angel investor to your IG bio, you have a few days left. Check out the Cherry Bombe community round on wefunder.com. You can also find the link in our show notes. The campaign ends Wednesday, January 31st. We have a lot of exciting things planned for the next decade of Cherry Bombe and want all of you to come along with us. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Joseph Hazen is the studio engineer for Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center. Happy birthday, Joe. Our producer is Catherine Baker. Our associate producer is Jenna Sadhu. And our editorial assistant is Londyn Crenshaw. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.